Hi guys, and welcome to a new video on Sonal's life. Now, I know I've been treating you with content, but today is, I guess, even more special because you can see that I am not alone. On ahead of G1, I have got a very special guest. Now, obviously, you New Japan fans are going to know who he is, but I'm going to let him introduce himself.
Well, hi everyone. My name is Walker Stuart. I am the lead English commentator for New Japan Pro Wrestling ever since October of last year. It's been the absolute ride of my life. And so now I appreciate you having me on. I'm excited. I'm getting into the swing of things for my first ever G1 Climax. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on, of course.
Yeah, of course. Now, the main thing, you obviously, this is your first time on the channel, and I like to get to know a lot of my guests. So, I guess the first thing is, how did you get into New Japan Pro Wrestling? It's a story that changes for everyone. Some have been watching it for years, some are brand new. What was your first exposure to the company?
Yeah, so my first exposure would have come within the legendary series of matches between Okada and Omega, right? And I think that was a lot of people's first time really diving into the nitty-gritty of what is New Japan Pro Wrestling. Kazuchika Okada, one of the best who have ever done it. Kenny Omega, would love to see that guy return to the ring sometime very, very soon, considering the level and the quality of in-ring competition those two have been able to pull off now, both of them in AEW. Yeah, Omega Okada, like I actually watched the first three matches of theirs back to back to back, all in a row, because I the third one came out, everyone was like, Walker, you gotta watch Omega Okada. And I was like, fine, but it was low key a bit of a mistake to watch them all like back to back to back. That's hours of wrestling and once it's the same two guys. I still loved it, but it was one of those like, all right, I need a break. It was a lot.
I
Uh,
think it's when you watch it spread out, it's fine. But when you watch them all together, you realize the
right.
sheer amount of time they wrestled each other.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I was like, what, sophomore in high school, maybe something like that, whenever that was happening. And I, for my father, I love my father to death. He's watched wrestling with me, probably only because I watch it, but he gets into it when he can. And he's even gotten into the New Japan product ever since I've come on board, which is really cool to be able to share that with him. But Omega Okada, I sat him down and forced him to watch it with me. I was like, I'm not doing this alone, old man. So you're coming along for the ride. And yeah, no, it was, so that was my first introduction to New Japan. And for me, at the time as a high school student and then going into college with, as I'm sure you're aware, the scheduling of the shows, I didn't really wrap my head around it at the time between, night 15 of Road to Dontaku. And I'm like, what's the difference of that and Power Struggle and Dominion, and, like all these different things coming together. So between, my full-time college and school schedule and stuff like that, I had to kind of observe New Japan Pro Wrestling from afar, kind of absorb a little bit of the history and such. And oh, here are the results. That sounds cool. I'm gonna watch this match. And then, of course, I worked the independent scene in the United States for a couple of years. And of course, Kevin Kelly, my predecessor in the lead English spot, announced that he was stepping down, announced that he was looking for someone to take the role internally within the company. And it just so happened that a good pal of his, a former Ring of Honor wrestler named Bob Evans, had called him and said, hey, I know this guy who's grinding on the independents in the Americas and just doing everything that he can to try and get noticed. You should at least take a look at the kid, take a listen to his work. And it just so happened that Kevin thought I was the right choice and pitched me to TVSIE in New Japan, and we all went from there. So, and that happened September, October 2023.
And you've honestly, it's been so refreshing because not only do you have a great presence on the New Japan, but you work amazingly with everyone on commentary, whether it's Chris Charlton, whether you're bringing other people to it. I guess, what has your first, I guess, nearly a year, what has it been like doing, obviously, the America shows, the big one you did, Tokyo Dome? I guess, like, how has it been? Because it's a huge change, I guess, from going from the independents to traveling to and from Japan, doing some of the biggest shows on the New Japan calendar.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so funny. Like my first few independent shows that I did back in July of 2021 had a crowd of 25 people, maybe 10 people watched them on YouTube. I sounded like a poor man's Jim Ross. It was an experience. And of course, it went from there, reps and reps and reps. I think the biggest crowd I had ever been around at a wrestling show that I was live at the booth doing commentary for, and not just helping out backstage or anything, was 600 people in a small town in Kansas. And then my first big New Japan show, November 4th last year, Power Struggle, a couple thousand in Edion Arena, Osaka. And I talk about it on the broadcast during the main event, Will Ospreay and Shota Umino for the IWGP US UK belts. But the rumble in that arena, I was not making that up. I was not putting that on for effect. There was a genuine vibration that I'd never felt at a wrestling show before, whether it be as a fan, whether it be as a broadcaster. And I think back to that moment a lot, with that being my first big show in Japan, and just go, man, like, this is what it was all about. This was what the whole journey of, the 24-hour round trip drives, no sleep, with 4 other guys in a car to go make $20 on the American independent scene, was all to chase this feeling and to be able to do so full time. So it's been an absolute pleasure to get to not only do, the big shows, the Power Struggle recently, Dominion, and then my first Wrestle Kingdom at the beginning of this year, New Year Dash, and then going in now what'll be my first G1. It's been awesome as well to kind of work with some of the guys on the All Elite Wrestling side of things and the CMLL side of things in Mexico, really broadening my horizons for like what pro wrestling can be. Because truly, before stepping into the world of New Japan, I had done maybe some lucha cards in South Texas, down in the Houston area, but I didn't get exposure to CMLL and what the talent down there were capable of doing, or really what the deeper landscape of what Japanese professional wrestling can be. So it's been a culture shock for me in every single way, between the lifestyle change, the learning the language, dropping out of college to be able to pursue this when New Japan gave me the call, and everything. It's been phenomenal. I could not have asked for a better way for this all to come about. So.
And like you said, you've had so many firsts, and we're going into the first G1. And obviously, that is the topic of the video. Now, for years, it was very consistent. It was 2 blocks, 20 competitors. And then obviously, we had a few years where we had 4 blocks, and it seemed like a much larger field. This year, we have gone back to the standard 2 blocks. So 10, 10. We had 18 announced previously, and then we had the tournament, which obviously saw Callum Newman and Bolton Oleg come out on top. Now, what was your thoughts hearing this sudden shake-up? Not just, I guess, a return to the very traditional format, but seeing that some of the veterans, so guys like Tanahashi, Yano, Taichi, were having to put their spot on the line against the new guys. So even though he is a veteran, TJP, who's obviously, it'll be his first G1 if he'd got through, and guys like Callum Newman and Bolton Oleg.
Yeah, I mean, I'd argue that going from a 4-block structure to a 2-block structure, in a sense, you could argue makes it easier during the tournament for the actual athletes, but cutting it from a 32 number down to 20 makes it a much higher ceiling of entry. And we saw that, of course, the first G1 will be this year to not have Hiroshi Tanahashi. I'm sure you've seen all about it for the past 22 years. 22 years of G1 Climax have had Tanahashi. I'm 22 years old. I loved waking up in the morning and getting tagged in like 50 tweets that were like, Walker Stuart wasn't even born since the last G1 without Tanahashi. And it's true. July 2001 was the first or the last G1 that didn't have Tanahashi. Yuji Nagata won that back then. And ever since then, Tanahashi has been on that list of guys that everyone looks to in G1 Climax. Tomohiro Ishii, the same thing. Toru Yano, especially. Oh my gosh.
That was heartbreaking for me, because everyone on this channel knows I am the biggest Toru Yano supporter that they're humanly possible.
I mean, I think as the years go on, that number significantly drops. But hey, I mean, there's we all gotta have someone to root for, right? And again, Yano not being in, Tanahashi not being in, both men being eliminated, by the way, by a newcomer in the form of Bolton Oleg in that B block qualifier, even Taichi being eliminated. And oh my gosh, what a shock that was to the system. Like the way that young guy, say young guy, he's older than I am, but like young in the generational wrestling sense, less than 2 years into his career, just out of the Noge dojo, already 2 reigns as never openweight 6-man champion, and then takes out 3 of who could have been the top players should they had been in G1 this year. It's insane. So the changing of the guard and the way that these levels are switching, Callum Newman with a incredibly shocking victory over Kenta in the A block qualifier, and then going on to win against Yoshihashi. It's just it's really telling of New Japan Pro Wrestling saying, hey, you guys want a new era, you guys want new stars to be made, you want, well, we're going to give you the opportunity for these guys to get into these spots. And even Tanahashi as president putting himself in that tournament is such a game-changing decision. And I think that this year's G1 is going to be more different than any other G1 that we've had before because of that.
I think that's the thing, because we all know I'm very public and I'm very honest about the opinions that we see on the internet. Because on Channels Live, we are, and as people say, the most positive New Japan outlet that possibly happened. And obviously, there has been a lot of conversations for the past few months after some of the big names have left for AEW about, is New Japan in crisis? People complaining that they're not pushing the new talent, that they're focusing on the guys that everyone knows and loves. So the Tanahashis, the Naitos. And I really feel like New Japan have, and it's much more metaphorical, has stuck the middle finger up at the haters and gone, you wanted change? Here is change in the bigger one. You've got the Reiwa Musketeers, you've got Uemura, you've got, and we'll speak about this, Takeshita, Jake Lee, names that you wouldn't expect. And you obviously touched upon Bolton Oleg. I don't know if you feel the same, but this might be the strongest coming of any young lion since maybe the likes of Okada, who obviously came back and won the title. I feel like Oleg has graduated without an excursion, but like you said, he's won the Never Six-Man titles. He's current champion. He beat some of the biggest names in the company and is now going into his first G1.
Yeah, to talk about Bolton a little bit further, there was a conversation I had with Zack Sabre Jr. When Zack reigned as New Japan World TV Champion. Bolton Oleg, as a young lion, had challenged ESJ for that title. And of course, Zack ended up retaining, but went on to say in his post-match comments and in private conversation as well, that guy is a future IWGP World Heavyweight Champion. And talking to Zack recently, when these block announcements were made, Zack Sabre Jr., of course, in Block A competition, we'll talk about that later, I'm sure. Always a topic of conversation for G1 is Zack, but Bolton Oleg could very well pull off like the shock. I mean, we were talking about the Rainmaker shock with Okada and his return and all that. The Kazakh's shock, it could be going throughout the Tokyo Dome. We very well could see it. I mean, and I think that as a champion right now in New Japan Pro Wrestling, I think as a young talent, I mean, even in locker rooms, I've heard it from some of the talent on the roster that Bolton's confidence is continuing to grow. He kind of came in as one of those guys, the same way that I came in, and even many other people who are not of Japanese descent, where they come in and they're sheepish, they're shy, but they're trying their hardest to be respectful. What are the rules? What do we do here? And Bolton's kind of coming out of that shell now. We're seeing that fire a little bit more. So I'm hopeful that we can see something good out of Bolton this year. And good God, you talked about Takeshita and Jake Lee being in this year's tournament. That was, I had no idea.
That is a mind-blowing moment when those blocks were announced.
I had no idea. I was there live at the first night of the Soul Series in Sapporo when those were announced, and I had no idea. I had heard rumors, I had heard murmurings of a couple of names that could have been coming from Ring of Honor, could have been coming from AEW, some even from CMLL at the time, and none of them were Konosuke Takeshita. Certainly none of them were Jake Lee from Pro Wrestling Noah. So, I think that also throws a massive loop in the game plan for a lot of main roster New Japan Pro Wrestling talent.
And obviously people on this channel will know that I used to watch DDT, and I remember when I watched it, I used to dream about these moments. I used to say, can you imagine a Takeshita in a G1? And the fact that it's happening now in 2021, it's almost like a mind-blowing moment. And then, like you said, Jake Lee after Kaito Kiyomiya in the G1, I've thought, well, that makes sense. We're not really going to see any more Noah people. But then when that came up, and obviously the block that he's in, it feels like he has some unfinished business to sort out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Konosuke Takeshita, man, like the work that he has done, his body of work precedes him. I don't even need to talk about, I feel, the type of athlete we're dealing with when we talk about the Alpha and B block. And to see, that, I don't know, I'm sure you checked out Forbidden Door TNT Championship ladder match. I talk about the vibration, the rumbles in arenas that are very rare, but when they're there, you remember them very clearly. That rumble in the arena live in Long Island when Takeshita was climbing that ladder and everyone thought Takeshita was walking away with the TNT Championship. That's something that's going to carry over with him to Japan. The time that he shared in the ring with El Phantasmo during that, which, by the way, Konosuke Takeshita, El Phantasmo, and B Block that we're going to be seeing, I think that's going to carry over into that match as well. That's another one I'm really excited about. And I think that's sorry, I just think that's one of the cool things about G1 Climax, and I could go on and on about, is how, yes, we've seen Great Khan take on other members of Block A before. We've seen some of these, which will be rematches from previous G1s, but then you have these guys thrown in like Jake Lee, who, as far as we've seen so far, has tied it up alongside the War Dogs against LIJ, against Naito all together, et cetera, et cetera. And you get some of these dream matches out of the situation on that side of the bracket. Or very well with Konosuke Takeshita, especially on Block B, Konosuke Takeshita Yota Tsuji, which is going to be one of our kickoff matches for G1 Climax this year. I mean, I can't think of anything better as a fan, but also more defining for the active wrestlers on the roster. With all the talk that there's been, I know you had made a video about the relationship between New Japan Pro Wrestling and AEW. And with all the talk about NJPW X AEW versus AEW, however the fans or the roster members want to phrase it, God, nobody on the New Japan main roster wants to see Konosuke Takeshita come in, or Jake Lee from Noah for that matter, and claim what has already been theirs time and time again, claim what is a New Japan Pro Wrestling staple, fresh off of the IWGP World Heavyweight title, just now returning back to mainland Japan.
And that's the thing. Obviously, everyone knows my thoughts on that. And whether you agree or disagree, it's up to you. But it's true. You have these two outsiders coming in, similar to how we've seen in the past, who have got, I guess, a chip on their shoulder. And I guess we'll just quickly talk about the block. So in Block A, we have Tetsuya Naito, Evo, Shingo Takagi, Shota Umino, Sanada, Zack Sabre Jr., Great Khan, Homeboy, also Gabriel Kidd, Jake Lee, and Callum Newman. Now, obviously, there's a whole list of names in that. Off the bat, which name stands out the most to you? Which, I guess, one or two names do you look at and you go, wow, okay, this block is a standout because of them?
I think one name, and this may shock some people to hear, but I think one name everyone's going to need to keep a look on is Sanada. Sanada, you think about where he was this time last year. Oh, of course. Yes, I see. You think about where
Sanada fan here.
Of course, yeah. Well, you think about where Sanada was last year, reigning as IWGP World Heavyweight Champion, the longest reigning IWGP World Heavyweight Champion we've seen in the past 3 years of the title's existence. I think that when G1 Climax season comes around this time, we saw a little bit of a flip of aggression back in Sapporo when he faced off against David Finlay for the global heavyweight title. And while he wouldn't walk away with that win, I think that aggressive side is going to need to come out for Sanada to be able to revisit, should he still be World Heavyweight Champion by that time, Tetsuya Naito in a Wrestle Kingdom rematch. The only thing that could possibly redeem Sanada from that loss back at Wrestle Kingdom 18. I think that fire could drive him forward in A Block this year. Shota Umino being another one. You remember back in February, Korakuen Hall, great match with Ren Narita, really established Shota Umino as the more dominant of the two. Narita will be in B Block, so we're not going to see those two clash in block competition. Could be very well a final in G1 Climaxes to come, of course, but Shota Umino declared himself the ace, said, I'm the new ace of New Japan Pro Wrestling. And while that's not often something we hear people say, rather we hear people placed on that pedestal by the fans, by other members of the roster. Reality is Shota Umino calling himself the ace and then eating loss after loss after loss after loss. Then this sudden injury that took him out of altogether, took him out of any potential Forbidden Door action. Shota Umino has had a rocky start to this year. And if he really wants to maintain those claims as the ace of New Japan Pro Wrestling, really going to have to pull out the big one here.
And I think that's the thing. And I love that you mentioned Sanada, because Sanada is one of those, I would say, Marmite wrestlers in terms of there are people like me who love him, who think he is quintessentially the perfect athlete. But then you have other people who maybe criticize his reign, saying, Did he have that passion? Was he the right person? Just because, and I guess you could compare him to Tetsuya Naito's and Okada's, he is not the most flamboyant person. He is not the guy who is going to try and get attention. However, he is the guy that is going to turn up. He's going to work hard. He's going to put on amazing matches. And like you said, with his match with David Finlay, he's not always chilled out. He's not always that tranquilo guy that was in Los Ingobernables de Japón. And I don't know if you find this and how you feel about this, but for me personally, interfaction matches are the ones I look forward to the most. And specifically in this block, we not only have Naito and Shingo, but the added former Los Ingobernables de Japón members, Evil and Sonada. So what do you think about that? What do you think we can expect from those four?
I think especially Tetsuya Naito and Shingo Takagi is going to be a very telling matchup. Shingo Takagi, reigning as champion for as long as he did in the never open weight division, has never won a G1 Climax in his history in New Japan Pro Wrestling. Tetsuya Naito has won multiple over by this point, especially the most recent G1 33. I think that that's going to be telling in a lot of ways. We see El Ingobernable Tetsuya Naito as the leader of LIJ, and I don't think that's very disputable by this point. But a lot of people have taken notice to Tetsuya Naito, and there have been a lot of claims and a lot of criticism, claims of Tetsuya Naito needing to slow down for the benefits of his health. We talk all the time about the knees. We talk about the degenerative eye issues that Tetsuya Naito has had. He's had the third ocular surgery that he's able to have before those surgeries stop being effective in correcting that need. We could be looking at one of the I said this the last time when Naito reigned as world heavyweight champion, so I could be incorrect here. We could be looking at one of the final times for Naito as world heavyweight champion and one of his final G1 climaxes as well. All of this being said, of course, you want to continue what you have set as the leader of LIJ. Well, it's got to be a need to win situation for Naito. I don't think there's going to be bad blood between the two. Reality is, though, if that were to be the case, where Shingo Takagi defeated Naito. Naito said himself when he faced off against Tsuji for the World Heavyweight title back at Sakura Genesis in April, hey, if he beats me, he's the better man, but he's not going to beat me because he's not the better man. And, well, that's the confidence Naito has. Evil and Sonata, of course, being in the playing field as well. We've seen Sonata Naito time and time again, most recently back in February for the IWGP World Heavyweight title in Sapporo. And the match was definitely what that was. It will be a match again coming up in this year's G1. I'm very interested to see where Evil is at, as we haven't heard too much from him following that loss at Dominion to Jon Moxley, being the most recent man to be defeated by Jon Moxley for the IWGP World title. We talk about it all the time with Naito being in the race as IWGP World Heavyweight title holder. I think that makes Block A even more important in the minds of those in it compared to that maybe of Block B. If you pick up the win over Naito in that Block A situation, Lord only knows, you might have just set yourself up with a shot for that IWGP World title, should you be able to convince the IWGP board. So anything's possible, but I love that you brought up the interfaction matches, because when we get to Block B, there's going to be a lot to talk about in that way too.
And that's a perfect segue. So, like you said, Block A have that slight advantage in the sense that they don't have to win the tournament. If they can get that single pin over Tetsuya Naito, they could get a shot. But these guys have got a lot more on their plate. So we mentioned him, AEW's Konosuke Takeshita, Yuya Uemura, Hiroki Goto, El Phantasmo, Jeff Cobb, Yota Tsuji, Hanare, David Finlay, Ren Narita, and Bolton Oleg. Now, what I love about this block is you have a huge range of wrestlers. So you have guys like Bolton Oleg, the new guys, the returning young lions, so Uemura, Tsuji, and Narita. You've got your top guy Kokujins, but you've also got, and what I quite like, you have the veteran and the oldest man in the tournament, Hiroki Goto. Now, what are your thoughts on this block? Who stands out for you in this? And obviously, I'm going to give a shout out. This old block also has ELP on it.
Absolutely, yeah. ELP friend of the channel, if I'm correct, right? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, one of my favorite things about this block, as you just talked about, is the diversity in it. It's also the amount of young talent in there, the amount of champions that are in there. Hanare has never open weight champion. Again, just like with the IWGP World title situation, you're able to beat Hanare in this tournament. Very well might have earned yourself a shot at the never open weight title. Same goes for David Finlay and the IWGP Global Heavyweight title. In terms of interfaction warfare, Jeff Cobb Hanare, something very much to look at in the United Empire ranks, but in former Bullet Club action, former Bullet Club member El Phantasmo and current Bullet Club leader David Finlay. A lot of history between those two that I think is going to make that one especially interesting.
I think also if people are remembering and follow me on Twitter at wrestling_chat, you'll know that at Forbidden Door, ELP had a few comments about former Bullet Club members. Well, Bullet Club Gold, he said, obviously we know that Hikuleo we're heading to WWE with the rest of GOD, and ELP was basically like, Jay and Juice wish me luck, but they weren't here. He said he has no friends. Now, will this play, do you think, into the tournament? Because obviously we know ELP's not alone. He has a lot of content on his back, but it feels like ELP is going through a bit of a crisis within himself. He almost said it. He said he doesn't know if he wants to do it anymore.
I think that's an understandable thing for El Phantasmo to be feeling. I mean, he's a phenomenal singles wrestler in his own right, but a lot of his success in New Japan Pro Wrestling has come in tag team situations. Former IWGP Junior Tag Team Champion with Taiji Ishimori. Then we talk about the IWGP Tag Title and New Japan Strong Openweight Tag Title reigns with Hikuleo. I mean, I'm sure Jado is still on the side of El Phantasmo in a sense, but Jado, I don't believe at that stage in his career where he would want to get back into title contention, so to speak, alongside El Phantasmo as a very interesting formation of GOD that would be. So yeah, I can understand El Phantasmo feeling alone in this time. And I think that it's proof now more than ever. I was talking about it during Forbidden Door. Man, El Phantasmo needs some singles wins under his belt to get that confidence back, to bring back that energy that we know he's had before when he's standing alongside Nishimori, when he's standing alongside a Hikuleo. For El Phantasmo, I'm not sure if this will be the tournament, but it very well could be. And if it is, I would not be happier. I would be happier than anyone else in the world, admittedly. I think Phantasmo is an incredible athlete in his own right. And I just think getting that confidence back is going to do wonders for him. It's the tournament to prove it here.
And so as we come to the end, I'm going to ask some few quick fire questions. So from each block, which match are you most looking forward to?
That's a tough one because you got to battle between who are your favorites as just an enjoyer of professional wrestling and story going in. I think the number one match I'm going to look forward to in Block A will be between Shota Umino and Zack Sabre Jr. Zack Sabre Jr., one that a lot of people are talking about, has won New Japan Cup in the past, has never won G1 Climax in its history. And one of those situations where a lot of people saying if there's going to be any year for Zack, it is going to be this year. But a lot of people have to say the same thing for a guy like Shota Umino, or even a guy, as we mentioned before, like Sonata, where it's really need to win situations when it comes to keeping yourself on the map. When we talk about this tournament as well, I just bringing this up real quick. The past 10 years of G1 Climax winners, Naito, Okada, Tanahashi, Omega, Ibushi. 10 years, that's five names, right? And a majority of those have now left New Japan Pro Wrestling, gone on to All Elite Wrestling, gone on elsewhere. The only member of that list to be in this year's tournament is Tetsuya Naito. There's a 19 out of 20 shot here we're talking about where we have a first-time winner of G1 Climax, which, we have not had in quite some time. So I think that that's a really big point to bring up here when we talk about a guy like Shota Umino, where we talk so much about the future, so many people leaving, who's sticking around. Shota Umino's already planted his flag in the sand and said, hey, this is my domain and I'm going to be the one to run it. But all that talk has not led to anything being put on the board. And I think Umino and Zack Sabre Jr., one person's got to put something on the board. I think the winner of that match goes on to win A block.
And I guess because this channel is very much known for, well, I am known for my very wrong predictions, because in the 6 years I've watched New Japan, I've only ever got one thing right. Who is your pick to win if you had to? Now, on this channel, we are very patriotic to our Prime Minister, Zack Sabre Jr., and he is my pick to win. Who do you think is going to take the 2024 G1 Climax?
I think in many other situations, I would say Zack Sabre Jr. in all honesty, but for the sake of diversity in the pick, I think a really strong shot has got to go to Yota Tsuji. And I think that's going to be a controversial one for a lot of people. Well, Tsuji made it to the finals of New Japan Cup, won New Japan Cup. Do you really think Tsuji has what it takes to make it all the way in a tournament of this nature? And I say this, that was a single elimination tournament. Right now, we're dealing with a round robin style tournament. Tsuji showed out in a lot of creative ways in G1 33. And I think that Tsuji getting that taste of New Japan Cup glory and nearly getting his taste of that IWGP World title glory, I think we could be looking at, should Naito hold on to the title, Los Ingobernables versus Los Ingobernables in the main event of Wrestle Kingdom 19.
Now, to be fair, as someone who is finally attending their first Wrestle Kingdom next year, to see an LIJ versus LIJ main event would probably be one of the best things possible. So let's see, Zack, Tsuji could be one of them. Now, before we do our outros and things, I have a quick question I like to ask everyone. If you were a member of the New Japan roster, what faction would you like to join the most?
Oh my gosh. Wow, it's a shorter list of who I would not like to join.
I assume House of Torture is probably one.
I think Evil would have liked to have a guy my size on his side during that Dominion Lumberjack match, to be honest. But to be quite honest with you, I think I'm a vibe guy, right? I like energy, I like vibe. It's all about the aura. That's the word everyone uses nowadays, right? The aura in pro wrestling. That's what the kids say. I'm one of the kids, but yeah, hey. I think that the vibe of TMDK is one I would fit right into. It's just a bunch of guys, just guys being dudes, just chilling. I love that. And then they're killers in the ring. I'm a killer on the mic. We make it work. I think TMDK would be a choice there.
And on that note, that is the video. Now I'm going to let Walker tell everyone your socials, tell everyone where they can find you.
Yeah, absolutely. Velvet Voice WS on all social media. You could probably just look up Walker Stuart. Maybe I'm there, maybe I'm not, but I'm on most social media, so you can check me out anywhere that you wish. And of course, don't forget, videos all about it. G1 Climax 34, live English coverage every single night, all 19 nights of the tournament, from Nakaoka to Tokyo to anywhere else in the world. We're going to be there. NJPWworld.com. Opening night, July 20th in Osaka, and July 21st in Osaka as well. We're going to go on and on all the way to the finals on August 18th.
And obviously, you can find me. Make sure to go back and watch my other G1 preview, which came out last week. And obviously, I'm going to be there as much as I can live watching all of the shows. So make sure to follow me on social media at wrestling_chat. While you're there, hit like, share, and make sure to hit subscribe. Because, like I said, I have booked a trip to Japan next year, hopefully to go and see Wrestle Kingdom. So you're going to want to follow this channel for everything. So from me, from Walker Stuart, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and we will see you soon. Bye.